today's topic is dealing with difficult skins and why they may or may not accept the pigment of the microblading process that we do when they come to us for a treatment. One of those conditions is something that we're seeing more and more of, and that is called Keratosis Pilaris. So I'm not a dermatologist, but I am seeing more and more of Keratosis Pilaris in my rooms, and usually it presents itself in a way that the client comes to me and say, they're usually somebody in their 30s and go, you know, I always had perfect brows, Olive, and next thing all of a sudden they all just fell out, and there's no other factors like alopecia or chemotherapy or any other reason why your eyebrows on their own could just fall out. Oftentimes people who have a hormone insufficiency like thyroid and menopause, obviously they would suffer hugely, but they wouldn't just all fall out. And in the last 11 years, I'm seeing more and more difficult skins, obviously, and this is one. So when the client presents to me and says, I was a regular girl, minding my own business, I always had a lovely brow, and next thing all of a sudden I ended up with losing my brow, and that's why they come to me. And oftentimes when I look at the brow bone area, sometimes it's very obvious what is going on there, and then there are other times it's a little bit more secretive, and I actually don't see the cause of their brow hair loss until I'm actually in the middle of the treatment when I'm doing the wiping. Invariably, it is a client that will find that even though we did the treatment and there was nothing wrong with the treatment, and they had the treatment and seemed to be a perfect candidate in order to have the treatment, the retention is never great. And that sends a red flag into my brain going, what's going on here? So the client comes back and the retention is fairly poor, even though the treatment was perfect. And then they're usually that client who needs to come for a third session. And that's not unusual. Usually we invite you back for a third session anyway, just to sort of tidy up any loose ends. But they're usually the client that needs to have a full treatment at the third session as well. And still when they come back and they get in touch with us 6 or 8 months later and saying the retention isn't great, Olive. And it's nothing to do with the treatment. It's also nothing to do with the client. It is usually because your skin, if you have Keratosis Polaris, that it's actually going down the road of, don't like you, getting rid of you the best that I can. And invariably, if I was a bad practitioner and I did the treatment all over again, what it ended up is that your skin is at a risk of scarring, firstly. Secondly, it'll lay down more skin. It'll go down the road of, trauma, and it'll lay down more skin on top of the work that I've done to try and brighten up what I've done previous. And then that in itself will make the opacity of the pigment to be seen through the skin less visible, and therefore what will end up happening is it could start looking like a greyish or an ashy colour. Now, the upside of it, at least, is that you will have shape in order to pop your pencil on. The downside of it is that you won't have a microblading treatment as any of your friends would have, and that it would actually be seen as a unsuccessful treatment. But there is a silver lining to that cloud. Yeah, you have to call it a day. I have to call it a day and say, I can't really do any more treatments on you. I'm doing you a disservice. I would be making promises that I can't keep. I am stressing. Yes, I am a nurse, but I'm not a dermatologist. And oftentimes that the Keratosis Polaris is very obvious on a client. It's a bit like eczema. It looks like psoriasis on the eyebrow area, and that is usually a red flag for me. And anybody who has sudden eyebrow loss with no other symptoms anywhere else, like plantaris lichens, that would be diagnosed by a dermatologist. You're better off coming for a consultation so that I can actually go through a thorough consultation process with you and save you the time and expense of having the treatment done and finding that it is an unsuccessful treatment. So the treatment is perfect, you are perfect, but their skin won't accept the pigment. And with consultation, I usually would, if a client said to me, I lost my eyebrows for no reason, whenever, and it hasn't got any other symptoms, well, then that usually would be my indication to sort of examine and scrutinize the brow bone really well. But even that actually in itself isn't foolproof, because I would actually deem a client as being a perfect candidate for eyebrow microblading or blade and shape treatment. And when I'm doing the treatment, that I can actually see this massive redness, even with the lightest pressure when you're doing the wiping. And then as I'm doing the wiping, I can see this bumpy, like chicken skin coming. And I would oftentimes say to the client, do you suffer from eczema? Do you suffer from psoriasis? You know, we don't want to be adding a new trauma to your skin by having eyebrow microblading done. And invariably the client would say, no, I don't suffer from that at all. But I'm already in the middle of the treatment at that point. And the longer I'm doing this work, the more clients that I'm seeing. And I've discovered that more and more, even though 70% of my clients are cancer chemotherapy, and there's a reason why they've lost their eyebrows. And alopecia, there's a reason why they lost their eyebrows. And the postnatal and menopausal and thyroid issues, they're all hormonal. There's a reason why they've lost their eyebrows. But unexplained eyebrow loss, I am now going to send those clients to see a dermatologist first before they come to me. And that a dermatologist's fee could be what, €150 for a consultation, rather than coming to me and paying nearly €600 for a microblading treatment and finding out that it has been unsuccessful. And I'm doing this in order to serve you and not to waste my time or your time either. And I've noticed for the last 5 years that a lot of my clients are more medical clients, and they are coming to us, I think, because both myself and Nurse Aisling are nurses, and now Nurse Debbie as well, but we're not dermatologists, and it's fine for us to be able to deliver the treatment and do a certain criteria when it actually comes to screening you as a good candidate to have the microblading or the permanent makeup process done. But that's from a safety point of view, and that's why we drive that home, but we're not dermatologists. And I have found that it's more medical microblading is the umbrella is starting to become more medical microblading within the Browteak Ireland brand. So we need to change our criteria in our intake. So in doing research, I hear people talk about research all the time. They do a Google search in relation to Keratosis Polaris. I came across a great website that gave me all the information I needed actually in relation to what it is. You know, it's not a awful thing. It's just the way that your skin is behaving, no different to eczema or psoriasis. I have psoriasis myself. And it also goes through, you know, how to identify it, how to treat it. And you'd often see it in young kids, actually, this Keratosis Pilaris. Do you know, they'd have this kind of little chicken skin here at the back of their arms. And the treatment usually is with retinols and hyaluronic acid, but that's dermatology. But invariably, when I'm doing the work, if I find that it's hard to get the pigment to glide under the skin, that's the first red flag. The second one is the client usually feels the soreness more than a regular client. Our clients fall asleep. Thirdly, there could be a bit more bleeding at the treatment time, so I use more epinephrine, which is adrenaline. And oftentimes the client would tell me when they come back, oh my God, Olive, it felt really itchy afterwards. Now there's a certain amount of itch in the healing process, which usually I advise you to get a cotton tip and just, you know, give it a bit of a rub or a wipe just to get rid of the itch. But that client usually comes back to me and says, you know, the retention isn't great. I have ongoing itch a lot. And yeah, I just scratch it, but you know, it's kind of not really driving me mad, but it's there, and the retention isn't great. That is a red flag. So, okay, I'm going to wrap this up now and say that our intake is going to be a little bit different ongoingly. We are now going to anybody who sort of comes to us and say, I don't know what happened, my eyebrows just fell out. We are probably going to recommend that you go to dermatology first and then see if they actually recommend that you can have eyebrow microblading done. Will it be a success? I have seen it a success, but I've also seen it not a success also. And I've also seen occasionally that clients, they would not have alopecia per se, but they could have a receding hairline. And that worries me oftentimes as well, in the sense that their skin is trying to get rid of the hairs here at the front of their fringe, and it's quite possible that it might reject the pigment as well. So is it a success? I think it's always worth a try, but I do need for you to come in to me with your eyes open. I will do the screening process as best I can. There are times that it'll be very obvious that you are an unsuitable candidate, and I will tell you that you're an unsuitable candidate, but there will be somebody who will take you on. But I will also go through with you the risks. Sometimes it's a success, sometimes it's not. And a lot of people would say, do you know, I think it's worth a try, Olive. I'm going to take the chance. I'm going to take the risk. In my 11 years, there has been 2 clients that have come back to me with no retention, whatever. And at the time, if I was inexperienced, I would have probably thought, what's this all about? But now that our clients are coming more for medical reasons, that the red flag is up, kind of going, there's an autoimmune thing going on here, and this client is not a suitable candidate, and invariably we would send you for a dermatology consultation. So treatment would have gone perfectly well, invariably, and you know, usually clients they have to come back for a minimum of 2 visits. It's the clients that come back for the review step, and that we have to do a full 3-step, full treatment on them. At that I usually sort of put a note on that client's chart to say, we're going to have difficulties here, the retention may not be great, and for us to alert you. If we find that clients need to come back like between 6 and 8 months ongoingly, as would be the case for clients with alopecia, which is quite normal. But for regular people who don't have a skin issue and don't have alopecia, that I usually sort of go, you know, you're not going to have the same treatment appearance as your friend does, and you need to accept that. So as a professional, it's all very well to say, yeah, you're a professional and you do this all day, every day, which is the case. But we also, as a professional, need to know when to say no to a client, and to be able to sort of give our opinion. As we have learned in the last number of years, microblading has only come to the Western world in the last 15, 18 years. I'm doing it 11 of those years. And in the early days, you know, we were attracting clients that were coming for beauty. And now we are attracting clients that are coming for lots of other various reasons with varying results. So it's not a one and done. Our skin is an organ. As you can see, it's a very unpredictable one at that. And we have clients that have varying outcomes and results. So you may not have the same appearance that your friend has, but you will still have shape. And also to have a realistic expectation. So we will help you to reach that realistic expectation. We don't always get it right, you know. I don't wear any brow products on my eyebrows every day. My eyebrows in the early days when I had these done 10 years ago, only held the pigment for 5 to 7 months before I had to have them touched up regularly. And then we discovered that microblading wasn't for me at all. So I went down the road of blade and shade treatment, and now I actually have a powder brow done with Nurse Ashling, who works in my clinic on Mondays and Fridays. So she does a that sort of a treatment on me, because there was no point in having microblading done all the time. So we evolved into that over the last number of years. So I don't wear any brow products at all any day. Every morning I just get up and I comb these bad boys into place, but I don't wear brow products. So I'm very fortunate that every day I get up and I don't have to do a thing to my brows. And if I go out in the evening time, which rarely happens now, but I just put on my makeup and make sure that the foundation is cleared off my eyebrows and they're looking great. But there are other clients who either have opted to go for a lighter colour and love that it just gives that little bit of a shadow, and it just frames their face, but not in a roaring way. There will be blonde, ginger hair clients, grey hair clients who opt to have one of the lighter colours to be done, and then when they go out in the evening time, then they might put a bit of pencil over their eyebrows. But there are clients who actually, if their skin doesn't receive the pigment as they might like, or as I might like, there's a reason for it, and it's not anything to do with the treatment. It just means that that's the way your skin has received it, and it doesn't mean that you have to keep on coming back, but you may have to, and you have the shape, is to just slick a little bit of pencil or a bit of brow mascara over your eyebrows in the morning and you're good. The shape is there, it looks great, all it needs is a little bit of definition. So eyebrow microblading, eyebrow tattooing is not makeup. They call it permanent makeup, but that's because it's sitting under the skin, and it very much depends on the translucency of your skin, what can be seen through. So some people have an unrealistic expectation as to what the eyebrow permanent makeup or eyebrow tattoo will deliver for them. For some people, like me, now 11 years, 10 years down the line, I don't bother with my eyebrows any day. I just put a little bit of brow mascara sometimes, or maybe just use a spoolie to get the brow hairs into place, and I'm good to go for the day and night. And then there are others who actually just need to sort of flick on a little bit of pencil and see where they go from there. The more often a client comes back, the more risk they are at of their body laying down extra skin because it sees as a trauma, and then it ends up going ashy. So I hope that helps. There are occasions, a bit like what we had last week or the week before, I can't remember, where a client came, retention isn't great, was needing to come more and more often, was getting that itchy feeling, was this unexplained eyebrow loss, young, healthy girl, and that I actually said to her, I really feel that we should call it a day. And she was that person who actually went, do you know, Olive, I really value your opinion. Anybody else would have just said, yeah, let's keep going. But you actually had the professional opinion whereby you thought, I'm not going to waste your money anymore. I'm not going to make false promises. We have a problem here. We have an issue. And you had the decency to be able to call it a day. And thank you so much. So I hope that helps. Have a great day, everybody.